On a sweltering July afternoon in 2019, the facade of suburban bliss was shattered in a way that would haunt the community for years to come. At the center of this tragedy were the Whitmores, Jonathan, a 45-year-old investment banker with a reputation for his work ethic and community involvement, and his wife, Elise, a 43-year-old part-time yoga instructor known for her vibrant personality and infectious laugh. They had been fixtures in the community for over a decade, their seemingly perfect marriage the envy of many. Next door lived the Garcias, Denise, a widow, and her 19-year-old son, Ryan, a college sophomore home for the summer. The Garcias had moved in 5 years ago, and while they kept to themselves more than most, they were generally well-liked by their neighbors. No one could have predicted that these ordinary lives would collide in such a catastrophic way. Jonathan Whitmore had always been driven by ambition. Born to working-class parents in rural Iowa, he had clawed his way up the social ladder through sheer determination and an almost obsessive work ethic. By his early 30s, he had established himself as a rising star at a financial company. His colleagues admired his sharp analytical mind, and his clients appreciated his no-nonsense approach to wealth management. Elise Monroe, as she was known before her marriage, had a different trajectory. The daughter of a college professor and an artist, she grew up in a household that valued creativity and self-expression. She studied modern dance at the university, dreaming of a career on stage. However, a knee injury in her senior year derailed those plans, leading her to pivot toward yoga and wellness coaching. Their paths crossed at a charity gala in 2003. Jonathan, already successful but lacking in social graces, was immediately drawn to Elise's vivacity and charm. For Elise, Jonathan represented stability and the promise of a comfortable life that would allow her to pursue her passions without financial worry. They married a year later in a lavish ceremony that was the talk of their social circle. The early years of their marriage were happy ones. Jonathan's career continued to flourish, and he took pride in providing Elise with the life he felt she deserved. Elise, for her part, threw herself into being the perfect corporate wife, hosting dinner parties and attending social events that were crucial for Jonathan's networking. She also began teaching yoga part-time at an upscale studio, finding fulfillment in helping others achieve balance and inner peace. But as the years wore on, cracks began to appear in their carefully constructed life. Jonathan's work hours grew longer, his ambition pushing him to chase ever bigger deals and clients. He was rarely home before 9 p.m., and even when he was physically present, his mind was often elsewhere, constantly checking his phone for emails or market updates. Elise, approaching her 40s, found herself increasingly restless. The yoga classes and charity committees that once filled her days now felt hollow. She began to question the choices that had led her to this point, wondering if she had traded her dreams for a gilded cage. The couple's failure to conceive despite years of trying added another layer of strain to their relationship. By the summer of 2019, the Whitmores' marriage was a carefully maintained facade. To the outside world, they still appeared to be the golden couple. Jonathan continued to excel at work, recently closing a deal that put him in line for a partnership. Elise's yoga classes were more popular than ever, her students drawn to her warmth and apparent serenity. But behind closed doors, they were virtual strangers. Conversations, when they happened, were perfunctory and centered around schedules and social obligations. Physical intimacy had become a rare occurrence, each touch laden with unspoken resentments and unfulfilled expectations. Neither Jonathan nor Elise was willing to admit, even to themselves, how far they had drifted apart. It was easier to maintain the illusion, to go through the motions of a happy marriage, than to confront the emptiness that had grown between them. Little did they know that this unacknowledged chasm in their relationship was about to become the catalyst for a tragedy that would shatter not just their lives, but the entire community of Brookside. The Garcias had moved into the house next door to the Whitmores in 2014, following the death of Denise Garcia's husband, Dr. Miguel Garcia, a respected oncologist. Miguel had succumbed to the very disease he had spent his life fighting, leaving Denise to raise their son Ryan alone. Denise, a soft-spoken librarian, had initially struggled to adjust to life in the new community. The move from their modest home in St. Paul had been necessary to escape the memories that haunted every corner of their old house, but the affluent suburb felt alien to her. She found solace in her books and in tending to the garden that soon became the envy of the neighborhood. Ryan Garcia was 14 when they moved in, a lanky, introverted teenager more comfortable with computers than with people. The transition to a new school had been difficult, and he often found himself the target of bullies who mocked his second-hand clothes and quiet demeanor. It was during this time that Jonathan Whitmore had taken Ryan under his wing, offering him a job mowing lawns and doing odd jobs around the neighborhood. Over the next 5 years, Ryan had blossomed. The awkward teen grew into a handsome young man, his natural intelligence finally finding an outlet in his computer science studies at the university. Despite his growing confidence, Ryan remained devoted to his mother. He worried about her isolation and loneliness and made a point of coming home most weekends, even when his friends were planning parties or road trips. It was on one of these weekend visits in early June that he first encountered Elise Whitmore in a new light. Denise had always been grateful for the Whitmores' kindness, particularly Elise's efforts to include her in neighborhood activities. She often spoke of Elise's generosity, unaware of the complex emotions brewing beneath the surface of her son's polite nods. The spark that ignited the affair between Elise Whitmore and Ryan Garcia was as unexpected as it was intense. It happened on a balmy evening in early June, during one of the Whitmores' legendary summer barbecues. Jonathan, as usual, was holding court near the grill, regaling his colleagues with tales of his latest financial coup. Elise, feeling particularly isolated amidst the crowd, had retreated to the relative quiet of the pool house to replenish the ice bucket. Ryan, who had been reluctantly dragged to the party by his mother, chose that moment to seek refuge from the noise and forced socializing. He entered the pool house, not realizing it was occupied, and found Elise struggling with a large bag of ice. Their eyes met, and in that instant, something shifted. He moved to help her with the ice, their hands brushing. They stood there momentarily frozen, the cold of the ice contrasting sharply with the heat building between them. It was Elise who broke the silence, her voice husky as she thanked him. Ryan, usually so articulate, found himself stammering in response. That brief encounter set the stage for what was to come. Over the following weeks, the encounters became more frequent, each one building on the last with an intensity neither Elise nor Ryan could fully understand. It began innocently enough, a conversation while watering the garden, a shared laugh over a dropped package, lingering glances during neighborhood walks. But soon, the boundaries blurred. What started as flirtation escalated into a full-blown affair that neither could resist. Elise found in Ryan what she hadn't felt in years: attentiveness, admiration, desire. He listened when she spoke, looked at her as if she were the only person in the room. For Ryan, Elise represented everything he had longed for: beauty, sophistication, validation. She saw him not as a boy, but as a man. The age gap, the moral implications, none of it seemed to matter when they were together. In each other, they found a refuge from their respective loneliness. They met in secret, at a nearby motel, in the pool house, even in Elise's yoga studio during off hours. Each encounter was a risk, but the thrill only intensified their connection. Elise told herself it was temporary, a distraction, something she needed to feel alive again. Ryan, however, was falling hard. He imagined a future with her, convinced that their connection was more than just lust or escapism. It all unraveled on July 19th. Jonathan had returned home early that day, a rare gesture prompted by a canceled meeting and a desire to surprise Elise with dinner reservations. As he pulled into the driveway, he noticed Ryan's car parked discreetly along the curb. His initial thought was annoyance. He had grown suspicious of Elise's growing attentiveness toward their young neighbor but had pushed the thoughts aside as paranoia. Inside, the house was quiet. Jonathan called out for Elise but received no answer. As he walked toward the pool house, a gut feeling took hold. The sliding door was slightly ajar. What he saw inside shattered the illusion of his marriage in an instant. Elise and Ryan, unaware of his presence, were locked in an embrace on the daybed. The sound of the door slamming open broke the spell. Elise screamed. Ryan jumped to his feet, his face draining of color. Jonathan stood there, fists clenched, breathing hard, as a storm of betrayal, rage, and disbelief swirled within him. What happened next remains the subject of much speculation. According to the police report, Jonathan left without a word. He returned inside, poured himself a drink, and sat in the darkened living room for over an hour before calling Elise to come inside. When she did, the confrontation was cold, controlled. Jonathan told her he knew everything, that he wanted a divorce, and that she had until the end of the week to pack her things. Elise, shaken but defiant, agreed. But the story didn't end there. 2 nights later, Denise Garcia called 911 to report her son missing. He hadn't returned home after going for a walk. His phone went straight to voicemail. A search ensued, and the following morning, Ryan's car was found abandoned near a wooded area on the outskirts of town. 3 days later, his body was discovered in a shallow grave, badly beaten, with signs of a struggle. The community was in shock. Police launched an investigation, and Jonathan Whitmore quickly became the prime suspect. Surveillance footage showed his car in the vicinity of the woods on the night Ryan disappeared. A search of his home revealed bruised knuckles and traces of blood in the trunk of his vehicle. The DNA matched Ryan's. Jonathan was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. At trial, his defense centered around a crime of passion, that he had acted in a moment of blind rage, unable to contain the tidal wave of betrayal and humiliation. But the prosecution painted a different picture, a calculated act of vengeance by a man who couldn't stand the thought of losing control, of being made a fool. Elise testified for the prosecution, her voice trembling as she described the months leading up to the affair, the confrontation, and Jonathan's increasingly erratic behavior. Denise Garcia sat silently in the courtroom each day, her grief carved into every line of her face. After a 2-week trial, the jury returned a verdict, guilty. Jonathan was sentenced to 25 years in prison. The Whitmore house was sold within months. Elise moved to California, trying to rebuild her life far from the whispers and judgment. Denise returned to St. Paul, unable to bear the memories that lingered on every street corner. Brookside has never been the same. Some neighbors still talk about that summer in hushed tones, about the perfect couple that fell apart, about the boy who was too young to understand the consequences of love, about the rage that destroyed 3 families in one violent act. Others choose silence. But one thing is certain. Behind the trimmed hedges and manicured lawns of suburban paradise lies the potential for darkness no one ever sees coming. If this story shocked you, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Unfolded Enigmas. Stay tuned for more cases that delve into the darkest corners of human relationships and explore the devastating consequences of secrets, lies, and betrayal. Until next time, stay safe out there.